Hey, Audrey, thanks for joining us today. As we're getting started, give us a little background on yourself.
Oh, goodness. Okay. So I actually do not come from a sales background. I have worked in the hospitality and travel industry for the last 20 years, 20 plus years. I was a corporate travel agent. I worked for an airline. And then I took my time pretending I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom for a little bit, realized that was not actually for me. I love my children, but I also love to work. So I found this little startup company on Craigslist 12, almost 13 years ago, that was just getting started, was looking for someone to do customer service for a hotel rewards program. And I was like, I could do that.
Yeah.
So I joined Stash Hotel Rewards, which is the company that I work for. Joined them 12 and a half years ago and did a lot of the customer service side. So I kind of built up our member support team over those years and the operations side. And then in COVID, I started kind of helping in the sales team because we had kind of downsized, and as everyone did, right, in the industry. And I just had a weird way of like, our CEO saw something in me that he was like, you could do this. And I was like, I do not do sales. I am not a salesperson. I don't like salespeople. It's like, I can't do this. But he goes, no, it's not about selling, right? It's about personality. It's about being able to talk to people. And I never understood that. And so I said, I humored him. I was like, yeah, sure. Okay. I'll send some emails. I'll prospect a little. I'll do. And here I am 4 years later, head of our entire sales department here at Stash.
The
It's
accidental salesperson.
the accident. Honestly, it's so funny because our CEO, Jeff Lowe, will tell you he saw it all along. But I will tell you, there are still days when I'm like, how is this my job? How do I do? I don't know. Like I went from kind of behind the scenes to in front of the camera. But it's been a wild ride, but it's been really, really fun. So I'm definitely not the person that said I want to be a salesperson and got a business degree and went right into it. I followed a very different path that got me here.
Well, what was your perception of what selling was about before you did it?
I I think if you're not, well, even if you are in sales, I think you have this perception of like people are kind of slimy, right? Like they're looking for these different. I mean, honestly, like every time I think of salespeople, I'm like, oh, it's like a car salesman, right? You're
That's
like
what
the
things say.
different, or we all get emails where you can tell it's like a bot, right? I am the polar opposite of that. In fact, like I have never sent a templated email even. I custom everything. I did that in customer service too, because I just feel like salespeople get this rap of like, I got to hit a quota. I got to get this many things out. I've got to sell this many cars. I've got to whatever it is. And that they lose that personal part of it. And so my approach was the opposite, right? Which was, well, I want them to know I'm a real person. So my opinion of them was like, well, I just want to be the opposite of the experiences that I've had. But then I also, once I got into sales, realized there's a lot of amazing salespeople that really aren't selling. They are, promoting. They are engaging with people and getting them to understand their product or their company or whatever that is. And so I kind of learned from that as I was going along too. But yeah, I don't know. I had a very tainted view of it only because I had never done it. I had sold like Tupperware one time. In my 20s, I did Mary Kay, like those types of companies where definitely I was like, oh, I'm not good at this. I can't do this. It's not the same, not at all.
Well, I think a lot of people have that perception more on the customer side than the sales side. But,
True.
you know, I've been in this my whole life, and those people don't succeed, not in business to
Right.
business. You know,
Right.
B2C, you can get away with it because it's a short transaction.
Right.
People come to you, they're looking for something, and the person knows that if you don't sell it right then and now, it's over.
You're gonna lose them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it is interesting in the B2B space. You're creating a relationship is how I look at it, right? So if you look at sales, especially in what we do, right? Stash is a network of independent hotels. So we only work with highly rated, fully independent hotels. We are their rewards program. So essentially, like the Marriott Bonvoy, but for highly rated independent hotels.
Okay.
And so for us, we are creating a network. We have 310 partner hotels throughout North America that come to us. They join our program for different reasons. Some are looking for, helping shift away from OTAs. Some are looking for, more direct bookings, exposure, marketing, whatever it might be. But every one of them is kind of looking for a network. And there are other products out there that you can join that do similar things, but they don't really promote themselves as like a family. We truly promote ourselves as, yes, we have over 300 hotels, but you're going to get one of us every time you need somebody. You're not going to get a chat bot or a call center. I stay very close to all of my hotels that I reach out to, that I meet with, that I bring into the program. Yes, I pass them off to our amazing like partner advocates, our account managers, but I'm always there too. And so we create sort of a family, like an ecosystem where you're not just another customer for us, even as we continue to grow. And I think that makes a huge difference too.
And what parts of the service and support experience helped and what parts hurt?
Okay, so I laugh a lot because I I mean, I worked for an airline, like frontline in my early 20s, like 18 to 23. I worked frontline customer service gate agent,
All
right?
those
Like,
nice people.
oh my gosh, the stories I could tell you. I had a frozen turkey thrown at me one time. A woman
That was me.
tried, what? Yeah, this woman tried to bring her turkey. She said it was her support animal and she wanted it to have a seat. And when I would not let her, she threw it at me. Like I could tell you, but that's the thing is it's almost like it gave me this thick skin. And then when I came into, with Stash, everything is obviously like we're remote, right? We have phone lines, but most of it, our customer service is behind a computer. And I was like, well, gosh, this is nothing compared to being in front of a customer that's mad at you, right? And so what we did with Stash was like we made it so you always get a response within 24 hours. It is always a real person. It is, if you need something, you're going to get probably the same person when you call back or write back. And so I always told our team, and what I've always done is no cut and paste, like make it personal. And so that helped me because then when I came into the sales side and I realized that it's not about just generating, because the first thing I said was, I
Volume.
don't want to turn into like a sales bot. I don't want to take this list and plug it into a tool and shoot out the same email that just, HubSpot puts the
Tag the name,
name into
tag the
it, right?
company, tag the
Yeah.
location.
Yeah. And how many of those do you get where they forget to do it and it
They
says insert
forget, or it
company
doesn't
name?
match,
That
or
is
it's
so,
capitalized, or
yeah, it's so easy to spot. And my biggest thing is like, I do not ever want anyone to think that they got a bot email. And so that basically gave me the tools to say, okay, this can be done without having to do templates and bots and canned responses, right? It needs to be authentic because in customer service, if you're not authentic, people read right through that, right? They know when
care.
they're getting a canned
Right.
response, but it's the same thing in sales. Like we have a company that we work with that manages a bunch of boutique hotels in Utah, in southwestern Utah. And he told the CEO of that company, I had reached out to him about a year and a half ago. I started seeing their name pop up and I was like, gosh, all these really cool properties I'd never heard of. And he told me that and he actually copied our CEO and said, I get a ton of emails every day, of sales emails, of companies reaching out to me. And he goes, I rarely ever respond. But when Audrey's came through, she knew who we were. She knew the people on my team. She was very authentic in her email as far as like things about our company. She'd done her research. And so I realized she was a real person. And we have had a partnership with them for the last year and a half. They have like 10 properties in our program. So it's that kind of a relationship that I have some hoteliers that text me and we chat. I know their kids' birthdays. So it's just really important to create a relationship before you even try to sell to them.
So it
And then
sounds like
does
this,
it,
the
I was
support
going to say, then it does
stuff,
it itself, right? It just works itself out.
yeah, that you care.
Yeah,
And that builds trust. You care
absolutely.
about what they want to accomplish.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. And I think it helps too, having, coming into them and saying, I've been with this company since it was a tiny little office in downtown Seattle that we were all working crazy hours and trying to figure out next steps. And we've had big ebbs and flows over the last 14 years. And so it helps when they know, like, I've been here 13 of those 14 years. I've seen, so that kind of gets their trust also, that like I'm not just somebody who was hired 6 months ago to come in and try to get your hotel to join our program. I actually know the ins and outs of it, and I know it works. And I've been here a long time, which makes you realize that it's a good place to be.
And how much do you get inbound versus outbound?
We are primarily an, I mean, it's definitely less than a third. We do get a lot of inbounds, but the difference is that we only work with really highly rated, fully independent. Every once in a while we'll get hotels that come in that are not fully independent. They might be franchised.
Franchise.
Also, they might be just not up to our company standards. And so we get a bunch of those, but they don't really pan out. But I would say more than 2/3 of our business is outbound. So there is a lot of researching, prospecting, knowing your territories, knowing we call it hotel jeopardy, where,
Oh,
if you tell me a city, yeah, if you tell me a city, I need to know, like, I should know everyone there. If you find a hotel I don't know, then I owe you $5. Like, that's what we do. So it's just important to know the market. You got to know what works, what doesn't. What hotels would be good for us, what hotels have told us no thank you. So we do a lot of it is outbound for sure, which is really different for some people, because we've had sales team members over the years that have primarily done inbound sales selling. And it's I mean, again, I never did any of it. So to me, outbound sales makes sense, but to some, that's a harder thing to wrap your head around because it takes a lot more work.
And who do you want to talk to at the
So
hotel?
at the hotels, we are primarily looking for decision makers. So oftentimes we'll start,
How unusual.
right? I mean, sometimes though, it's funny because we kind of there's a lot of hotels that are either owned or managed by big companies, right? And getting to the big companies is difficult. So you want to start kind of at the hotel level, get hotel buy-in where they can then go to the big guys and say, hey, we think this makes a lot of sense for our property. And sometimes it makes sense for one property in portfolio and not for another, which is fine, right? That's just how it goes. We are looking for, a lot of times we're looking for general managers, but honestly, some of the biggest key decision makers are director of sales and marketing, because they are promoting the hotel and we're going to promote your hotel. So it's important to have their buy-in. And then revenue managers is another big one, because they are the ones looking at pricing and OTA share and all of those different things that we come in and can help with. Staff members tend to book higher ADR than even your other direct guests. And so it's important to get the buy-in of those making those revenue decisions.
And how many already have a program or belong to another program?
So you can have a lot of hotels, especially independents, will try to do their own loyalty program. And sometimes it's not usually a points thing. It's usually like a gift. If you book direct, you get free parking or you get extra benefits on property, right? And so we can come in and play perfectly with that because we are just the point side, right? A lot of our hotels will try something and then they'll come to us because we have a larger network of hotels. And so it's, when you're offering points at just your hotel, that people can only use those points at your hotel, it's not quite it doesn't grab a traveler's interest as much. So a lot of times we can play with their own type of amenity program, but otherwise, it's usually they're starting from scratch and they're like, we want something, but we don't know what, and it's hard to create it. We've tried, hand us your network. So oftentimes they have nothing at the time that they come to us, or they've tried other things and it hasn't worked and then they come.
How do you make money? Is it an upfront payment? Is it a rev share or?
We are paid by the points that our hotels award members. So if you're a Stash member and you stay at a Stash partner hotel, you get 5 points per dollar on your room revenue if you book direct. So OTA bookings, you never get points. If you book direct, you get those 5 points per dollar. At the end of the month, we invoice our partner hotels for whatever points they awarded Stash members that month. So that's where we get paid. And it's so funny because oftentimes I'll go through an entire sales presentation and someone will go, I still don't understand how you guys get paid. And I'm like, oh, all right. Because we don't charge until we don't do upfront fees. We don't have integration costs. We integrate with 40, 50 different PMS and CRS systems, and we don't charge integration fees. So people often get lost and they're like, wait a minute. So It's the point cost, and there's like a points minimum per month. But it's essentially just the points that they're awarding.
So that makes it a lot easier to get in, huh?
Right. It's very simple. We also don't have we don't do crazy contracts. We used to have 3-year agreements. COVID taught us a lot about the industry. I think that's just overall with anything, but people don't want long contracts. None of us do as a consumer or
Right.
as a business. Nobody wants to be locked into a 20-year Comcast agreement, right? Or whatever your cell phone agreement. So we got rid of those. So we ask our partners to give us a year because it's hospitality, it ebbs and flows. But then we just have a rolling agreement after that. We never want people to feel locked in, which is another thing in sales that I've noticed is there is a lot of apprehension to that. And it didn't used to be as much, but in the last 18 months or so, you see a lot of hotels going, we're a little, first of all, tell us what your terms are, like up front. They want to know, like, tell me I'm not locked into 10 years. Because large programs, like if you go and you brand to a Marriott or Hilton, those are like 20, 30-year agreements. We're like, no, 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 no. No, no, we won't do that to you. We always want to make sure it's working. That's the other thing. I don't want to sell you a product and then have it not work. And that's, the other reason we got rid of upfront fees is who wants to pay something before they know if it's going to work for them? So we learned a lot in COVID, which was just, that's not really the way we want to do it. We don't want a nickel and dime, and we want people to trust that it's going to work and that we stand behind that.
And can those individual hotels make that commitment without getting approval from home office?
Sometimes. So we actually work with a lot of owner operator hotels, which is like standalone independents that are owned by the person who's running them or by the family. Those are our bread and butter. The people who can make the decisions at the hotel level. I would say 65% of our network is like that. Of our other hotels that are branded or not branded, sorry, but managed by a larger company, it depends. So some of them can make their own decisions at the property level. And that is definitely what we are after because they are the ones that understand what the hotel needs oftentimes. Sometimes it has to go to the corporate level. But often we have a lot of hotels that are part of corporate management companies that have joined.
And where does a sale stall? Because I'm sure the first call goes pretty well.
Yeah, it does. So I will say the hardest part is getting them to talk to you, right? That's and making sure they know you're a real person and I'm sorry, and everybody jokes in our company because my emails are so dorky. Like I honestly, half the time, like our CEO the other day was like telling everybody, he goes, I was copied on an email from Audrey and she was talking about the weather with this hotelier in San Francisco. And we had just had this massive rain up here. Like my backyard was flooding. It's Seattle, so that's not weird that it rained, but it poured for like 3 days. And San Francisco, California just had all that rain. So we're going back and forth about our rowboats down the road because our lawns are flooding. And he's like, I don't know how she does this, but somehow it's not annoying. Like somehow it's like engaging to them. And these people, this big hotelier, they're going back and forth about their rowboats down the street in the rain, and then they ended up joining the program. And so where I think it stalls the most is getting their attention, making sure they know I'm real. And then when we do our presentations, sometimes we cram a lot of information in. We're getting better at that. But I also think if you don't send really concise follow-up, meaning here's the slide deck we talked about, but here is broken down. Like, here is what you get. Here is what we offer. Here is what our network is. If you don't bullet that out, I have a template that I even use. It's like the only thing I do a template with is making sure that I at least hit those points when I follow up. Because if you don't have all that information, when you listen to me talk for an hour, and I talk fast, as you can tell, and I'm passionate about it too. So I'm always, there's a lot going on in that hour. You're not going to absorb it all. So if I present to you and then just send you a quick, thanks so much, here's the deck, let me know if you have questions, it gets lost. Yeah. So you have to give those points of like, what are your questions? Let me try to hit them. And I also like to write notes as I'm talking. When people get stuck on certain parts, I make myself notes to like put that in my follow-up, like really dive into that part so that they aren't lost on like, well, I'll get back to this because I didn't really understand it. That's what I don't want.
But how do you create urgency? Because either they don't have it or it's new, it's change.
Right. That's something we struggle with. Not struggle, but because such a fine line, because I don't, like, I tell my team, I'm like, we don't want to be the people that are like, well, if you sign by the end of this month, we'll do this for free. I can't stand that type of selling. But that is how you create urgency, right? It's like
One
when you're
way, yeah.
shopping online. Yeah, when you're online shopping and a thing pops up that says, check out now and save 10%, you're like, well, I better check it out now because I want to save 10%, 10 whole percent. So we go back and forth a lot on what can we offer to certain properties that, that we know would be perfect, that we know are interested, but it's going to take a little bit more to get them fully on board, or it's going to take a little more time. We do a lot of incentives on, if you join with us by this certain time, we give you free points up front so that you can go win a group or a meeting with those points. Sometimes there are incentives along the way in the onboarding process. So and it's actually funny, but where we sometimes get stalled the most is the hotel has already come on board and then they're in the onboarding process. Our onboarding is really simple, but hotels are busy. Like sometimes they're running the hotel, right? So do they have time to always do it? So we do actually a lot more incentives in the onboarding process than we do closing the sale. There are times we throw things in, but again, I'm always weary of being the one that's like, hi, it's me again. If you sign this month, I will do, because that just feels like I really need your
Guaranteed.
business versus
Yeah.
I want your business.
And your main competitor is like what, hotels.com, the online aggregators?
No, so while we have a booking engine on our site, which our booking engine is integrated into all of our partners' systems. And so we don't charge them anything on those. So we're not an OTA because we don't charge anything. Our biggest competitors, honestly, is like Marriott Bonvoy and Hilton Honors, Preferred, which is another independent luxury resort collection. Those kinds of programs are where we see our competition.
And is it a revenue generator for them because they get repeat business?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have 1.2 million members throughout,
Wow.
primarily in North America, primarily in the US. So Cornell actually did a study on our member database. They looked at all of our member information for over a 15-month period. They were able to determine that when a guest enrolled in Stash, they stayed and spent almost 50% more. So that's huge because, again, when you're a standalone hotel without a loyalty program, yes, people love your hotel because it's independent, it's unique, but they're not getting anything for their money. And oftentimes independents are a little bit pricier sometimes,
Yeah.
depending on the market. And so if you're not offering them anything, you might lose them, right? They're not totally loyal to your hotel. So when you're not only the best hotel on the block, but you also give points, guests they're going to come back. And that's what the Cornell study proved. Also, our members tend to skew a little bit older, a little bit higher income earning, and they're less price sensitive. Independent hotel lovers are usually not concerned as much about the cost as they are about the experience. So, we have 1.2 guests who love independent hotels. So when a hotel joins us, I'm like, hey, we will shout you out to our network of people who are looking exactly for your property. And so that right there will generate revenue.
And I got to believe you could use that revenue reason as a way to create urgency.
True. You know what? One way we create urgency, and I actually just talked to a hotel the other day about this, is a lot of our hotels have, well, all hotels have most have a busy and a slow season, right? But we have a lot that are seasonal. So they're gearing up right now for summer. And if you're in a destination like near a national park or in a summer travel destination, we talked to a hotel the other day in Ocean City, Maryland. I'm like, okay, well, your busy time, your 4 months of busy is coming. So if it takes us 30 to 45 days to onboard, if we start now, you're on board, you're in our marketing emails by mid-April, and then you are exposed to all of our members in that area right as they're starting to book their summer trips from Memorial to Labor Day. So sometimes hotels come to us in like June. And we're like, well, we can get you on board as fast as you want, but your busy season right now,
Is tomorrow.
it's tomorrow, right? And so that's another reason why we asked for a year, because I'm like, listen, we'll get you on board, but when your traffic dies down in August or September, yes, we can help with filling midweek and shoulder season and things like that, because a lot of our members will do Drive Market to redeem their points in that time. But you just missed our prime time. So give us a year, and next summer, you're going to see how all those guests now know about you. They've been hearing about you for the last 9 months and they come back. But this is the sweet spot right now, February, March is oftentimes when we talk to hotels in leisure destinations and we're like, okay, this is it. This is the time. Don't stall. So that actually is a really good one that I didn't even think about, that's what we do sometimes, is looking at the seasonality.
Well, on your prospecting as well, because
Oh yeah.
you can't prospect them in July and August because they're booked. There's no
They're
need.
booked and they're too busy. Like we actually, our team, so we travel most of the year. Our team will sort of travel around to different markets. We don't really travel in the summer because going to a hotel in San Diego in July, no GM or director of sales is going to want to sit down for an hour with you, right? They are running around, they are busy, their team is full staff, right? So it's going to them in January and saying, hi, do you have time now? Yes. Okay, great. So yeah, that's a big thing on prospecting, is also knowing. Another reason why our whole thing is you've got to know your markets, right? So we all are, our markets are divided up to where we live, so that we are able to get there easily if we need to, but also we know the seasonality, we know the trends of that market. And if you don't, you need to learn it so that you know when you should be approaching these hotels. Because if you're banging on the doors in summer season and they're not talking to you and you're like, I don't know why they're not talking to me. Well, now you will next year when you've been here a while.
And what surprised you about sales that you really love?
I love it. I don't know even know how there's something about like hunting hotels. It sounds so cheesy, but like there are times I just open a Google map on my browser and I pick a state in my territory and I do hotels and I just start clicking. And most of them are not ones we can work with. A lot of them are brands, but it's like every once in a while you find one you've never heard of. And it's like Christmas morning. You're like, oh my gosh. Or, I have these different websites and blogs I follow. I have Google alerts set for boutique hotels, and you get these ones that you just have never heard of, and it's honestly so exciting because then you get to go down the rabbit hole of who owns it, who manages it, and it's just this fun. It's just this high that I love. It's something that just completely surprised me, because if you would have asked me 4 years ago, I would have laughed in your face if this is what I was doing. That surprised me. Also, just the fact, I mean, my kids have always told me I could talk to a wall, right? Like I am that mom. I am that mom that in the line in
And it
Disneyland.
feels like you're talking to a wall when you're talking to them.
Right? Yeah, probably. Yeah, it does. I have teenage girls. Come on. But I'm the one who can make friends in the line at, the restaurant or at Disneyland or in an airport or on an airplane. Like my husband laughed because we went on a trip a couple weeks ago and there was this baby behind us cried the whole time. And I felt so bad for the mom. You could tell, first time mom, first time airplane ride. It was just absolutely terrible. So I bought her a drink and said, I know this is weird. Can I take your baby from you for a minute? Took her baby and walked with it. And she was like sweating. And I was like, have a drink, take a break. I can't run away with your baby. We're on an airplane. I was like, and and I walked up and down. My husband was like, I mean, this is adorable, but also this is totally you. Like you would become friends with anybody. And so part of the whole sales thing is just, I didn't realize the relationship side of it. I didn't realize how I would be creating these long-standing relationships and friendships with, people in an industry that I have worked in a long time, but haven't like excelled in or had any sort of status in. So that part has been really fun.
And has this always been your personality? Or is it something that you developed or?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm loud and obnoxious and I talk a lot.
Well,
Yeah.
we have
I, you
what people would think is a sales personality, very friendly, outgoing,
know, right.
gregarious.
Yeah. And it was funny because I was behind the scenes doing it for a long time, but I also think that just my life changes. I turned 40 this year and I feel like who I was at 20 and 30, also raising little kids, like I could have never stepped out of my comfort zone and done this type of job 10 years ago, 20 years ago. A lot of what I did built me up to this point as far as talking to people and solving problems and coming up with solutions. Um, but I never saw it taking the path that it has. But it's just, now I can't imagine doing anything else.
Hey, I
Which is
really
exciting.
appreciate your time today. Where can people go to connect and follow you?
So you can connect with me on LinkedIn. It's Audrey Yates, with Stash Hotel Rewards. And we have a LinkedIn page as well. Otherwise, our website is just stashrewards.com. You can check us out. If you're a hotelier, there's a whole hoteliers page as well.